You're listening to The Inspired Guide, episode 45. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. This is your host, Darlene Victoria. Today, we're jumping back onto the Let's Talk About Podcasting train, where I answer the question, do you need to have a podcast if you are someone who is offering podcasting services? And some of the examples were for someone that's offering social media services. Well, they should be pretty active and good on using social media. Or another example would be for someone that has a website and they're offering website design. Well, their website should be pretty up to snuff, up to par, amazing and beautiful, and they should know their web design stuff. So, should the same be true for someone who's offering podcasting services? About 2 to 3 years ago, I presented to the International Virtual Assistant Association on 8 ways that virtual assistants can support podcasters. And in that presentation, I offered the different services that VAs or service providers, consultants, social media professionals, all of those people can support podcasters. And there are some services where you don't need to have a podcast in order to assist a podcaster or in order to provide services to a podcaster. However, if you are someone who wishes to offer audio editing, podcast launch consulting, podcast consulting of any kind, then yes, I do believe you should have or at least had a podcast series that spans at least 50 episodes, if not more, under your belt before you provide those services to somebody. In fact, I'd go on to say you should probably have more than 100 episodes under your belt before you start offering those kind of podcast services to somebody. However, there are other services where you don't necessarily need to have a podcast in order to support a podcaster, like writing show notes. If you are someone that is a writer, copywriter, and you like listening to podcasts, you're detail-oriented, you pay attention to detail, and you are able to write with conviction, write show notes that also capture the voice and essence of the host and their guests, then you can be a show notes writer and not necessarily ever have a podcast of your own. But you should definitely be interested in podcasts because a lot of the show note writing involves reading transcripts for podcast episodes as well as listening to them. Another area where you can expand your services and not necessarily have a podcast of your own is in the creative arts and social media promotion or marketing of the podcast. So when I talk about creative arts, I mean creating the visual content for a podcast, the cover art, or the episode art, the artwork that you will utilize on social platforms to promote and share the podcast, creating audiograms. Audiograms are video files that include a static image and audio clip from the podcast episode. So all of those creative arts and social media promotion things you can also do and not ever have a podcast of your own. And then also the social media aspect. If you are someone that is a social media pro and provide those services, you don't necessarily have had to have a podcast to support podcasters in this area. You just need to have a strong understanding of their audience, of their engagement, of the platforms they use, and all of that good stuff. Now, all of this is to say, if you are someone that is offering a podcast service package of any kind, I do believe it will be only of service to you and your audience for you to create a podcast. So if you are someone that writes show notes for podcasts, why not start a podcast about writing show notes and copywriting techniques, the best practices or the things that will help you as a show notes writer do better work for your clients. You can offer tips on things that hosts can be doing in their show prep or in their interviews to help you be a better writer for them. So that's just one example. Not all podcast providers need to have a podcast. It really depends on the service you are providing, but you do need the experience and expertise to back up the services you are providing. So if that's launching, audio editing, or anything where you need that technical prowess, then yes, you should have a podcast or have at least produced over 100 podcast episodes before sharing the knowledge and expertise and accepting money from people for said services. And then for all of the other services I've mentioned, you do also need the experience and expertise, but that doesn't mean you need a podcast. So I hope that's answered your question. If you would like to chat more about podcasting or what it looks like to be a podcast service provider, you can always drop me an email, podcast@darlenevictoria.com, or connect with me over on Instagram @DVPodcasts. That's all I have for today. I'll be back again tomorrow. Until next time, remember, be inspired by the most important person in your life, you. This is Darlene Victoria, signing out. Oh, before you go, I would love to connect with you. You can follow me on Instagram @DVPodcasts, and you can also find me on Facebook. Just look for Darlene Victoria Digital Media.